Hello and welcome to a special edition of Galley Stories. Your host, Mark Keeler, has been called out of town for a few weeks, as you may have noticed from the missing podcast last week. So for this week, and to tide everyone over until he's able to come back down, he has requested that I dig through his archives and pull out the very first episode he ever recorded. That's with Captain Craig Jenssen. Here's the episode.
Hey guys, Mark Kaler here with Galley Stories, true stories of fishing, experiencing life in Alaska and other places. And with me today is Craig Jenssen. Craig, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I've been a fisherman my whole life.
When you say whole life, how old are you now, Craig?
59.
59.
And
one foot in the grave.
Yep.
Okay, 1 foot in the
My
grave.
dad was a fisherman. I grew up on boats in Ballard.
Ballard, Washington. That's up in Seattle.
It's the known center of the universe.
Right, for fishing or
Yeah.
all things?
Well, for all things.
For all things. So when you said that your dad was a fisherman, what did your dad fish for, and where?
He fished off the coast of Washington and up in Canada at the time, because you could do that back in the 60s and early 70s. And I was 10 years old first time I went out with him. I wanted to go earlier, but he wouldn't let me. I was seasick the whole time, but I loved every minute of it.
Do you remember the name of the boat that your dad was fishing on?
The New Washington.
New Washington. And that would have been about what time?
Well, that was, I was born in 1958, and I remember it ever since I could, so from the early 60s till he died in 1974.
And he was fishing salmon?
Trawling.
Trawling, okay,
Yeah.
okay. What was the species he was after at that
Well,
time?
they did cod and Dover sole, Petrale sole, POP, ling cod, black cod.
So from a really, really young age, you were introduced to this, and
I grew up in it.
It was your life, okay.
And I never wanted to be anything else but a fisherman.
Your whole life?
My whole life.
Okay. Any siblings that went in the same industry or field, or?
Well, I got 3 brothers and a sister. 2 of the brothers, well, all 3 of them fished for a while, but I'm the only one that stuck with it.
Okay. So made it your lifestyle, right?
Yep, I did.
And got 2 kids, I believe. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And they're how old now?
29 and 27.
And are they also in the fishing industry now, or?
My son is. He works at a seafood company in Portland, and he sells seafood. And
so you're catching it and your son's selling it? Is that where we're going here?
that's where we're going.
So did you, when you were coming up, with your kids being born and going out and experiencing yourself, did you want your children to be in this industry or on the boats,
Yeah.
And
I took my son up to Alaska the first time when he was 10.
so like your dad?
Yep, he flew up. See, my dad, the boat was here, so when he was in between trips,
Here meaning Seattle?
yeah,
Or? Okay.
in Ballard, and we used to just ride our bikes down to the boat after school. We'd go down there on weekends. We'd paint the boat during the summer, and I wanted my son to have part of that, and so we were in Ketchikan on a charter, and we flew him into Ketchikan, and I picked him up there, and bought him his first BB gun.
In Ketchikan when he was 10?
In Ketchikan when he was 10.
Was there an eye put out, or?
Nope, there were no eyes put out. We tried to shoot jellyfish and stuff floating around. Just
Now, I got to ask you, you said when you started going fishing with your dad the first time, you were about 10 years old. You were born in 59, is that correct?
58.
58. So it was 68 or so. Was your dad's boat a wooden boat or
Yeah.
a steel hull boat?
75-foot wooden boat built in 1936.
Okay. Do you remember the maker of that boat, or?
I do. J.M. Martinick in Tacoma.
In Tacoma.
Yep.
Are they still around, or?
I don't think they are anymore. It was built as a sardine seiner, and then
Sardines up here, or?
no, down in California.
Okay. Okay.
Then it long lined up in Alaska for halibut for a while, and then by the time my dad got on it and started running it, it was a dragger off the coast here.
Okay. So, Craig, you've been working for the same company. We won't mention the company right now because we're just testing this whole theory. Which, by the way, guys, anybody listening to this is friends of ours because we're not going to show it to anybody else. But the company you've been working for, you've been with how long?
27 years.
And how long of that has been as a skipper or captain of the vessel?
27 years.
So, from day one. Oh, correct me. Okay, so actually when you came into the company, you had ownership interest in that vessel. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then
But that was just for a couple years.
And then moved into fully working for the company and being the captain.
Sold out of the boat and just became a hired captain.
Yep, independently wealthy, right?
No.
Is that how? No. So one of those kind of decisions, right? Or maybe it could have been or couldn't have been. 27 years on the same boat. You've probably seen a lot of crews come and go, and you have some favorite ones and some less favorite ones. Would you say?
Well, we've had pretty steady crew on the boat for the most part.
For 27 years?
Yeah. And now some of the guys are starting to retire out, so we have to get some new people in.
So I want to be clear. You are still currently today a captain of a vessel fishing in the Bering Sea.
That's correct.
Pulling pollock out of the water.
Yes.
Cod or whatever else you're assigned to do, haul fish. And your crew is about to retire. So you're saying that your entire boat is aging. Not just the boat, but the people on it.
That's correct.
Yeah, it does happen, doesn't it? Doesn't it? But you're saying that over those 27 years, you've had a pretty steady crew over that time period?
Yes.
So what's the average age of the crew on your boat? Which, by the way, is it 5 or 6 people on your boat?
5 people.
5 people.
Well, when we had pretty much the original crew, our average age, well, we calculated it out a few times. Our average age was like mid-50s. And then one guy...
That's when you started the boat? Or
No, that's when people started to retire.
So that's... Okay. So
Because
what about when you took it over?
I've had guys that have been there for 25 years.
What was the average age when the day you took the vessel over?
Well, we were all in our 30s, our young 30s.
So call it 34 or something, or what?
No, more like 32.
32.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and how old were you when you took that vessel over?
I was 32.
32.
Yeah.
Was anybody on deck older than you?
Yeah. One of the guys, he was a year older than me.
So not too far apart where
No.
he had the whole dad complex going.
No,
or anything.
and the youngest guy was like a year younger than me.
So it was really tight.
We were all real close.
So are
in age.
any of those guys still with you today?
Yes.
Which one?
Jamie.
Jamie, who just recently has started to begin to run the boat himself.
Yes.
Thankfully, you let him do that.
Yeah,
it's a big step, you know.
Now I'm half-time running the boat, and which I plan on doing as long as they'll let me.
Okay, so part of this whole idea and concept is going to be not just about getting to know you, but getting to know what happens on an actual boat with no bullshit here, right? So I'm going to ask you for a couple stories. All right, one of them's going to be serious and one of them's going to be a little humorous because we don't want to ever end this with a bad story. But I'd like you to tell us about the first time, not the biggest time, the first time that you were at sea, whether that be when you were 10 or whether that be when you're 59 currently today. The first time when you were truly afraid and what was happening and what the surrounding was at that point in time.
Well, probably the first time, well, probably the only time, because I've never really been afraid. I've been nervous, on sometimes maybe my navigation skill isn't what it should be, but I've never really been afraid. But one time, the boat I was on, we sank. We ran up on the sunken jetty at Westport,
Oregon?
Washington.
Or Washington, okay. Can you explain a little bit about how that, you say sunken jetty. So for some people, they might not understand what you're talking about here. We're not all, born at sea as you were. And
well, a jetty is a pile of rocks that comes out that kind of separates stops the waves from coming into the inlet. And then beyond the part above the water, you have the sunken jetty that extends further out, that's under the water, and it kind of knocks the rollers down as they come in.
The rollers being the way it's coming in, hitting the boats?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so we've been out on a trip, and very little sleep, working real hard, and it was
when you say very little, this is years ago, so how little is sleep? How long were you awake?
Oh, we would be awake for a day and a half without sleeping, mending nets, putting down fish, doing whatever we had to do. And I was the engineer on the boat. And so we were coming in. Everybody was really tired. Captain had probably been up for like 3 days straight. And he'd gone to bed. We were taking watches coming in. And so the guy on watch was having a hard time getting the captain up because he was sleeping pretty hard. And the captain, once he'd go to bed, he was hard to get up. So we were getting in towards the channel, and the captain was, hard getting up. And instead of the crewmen turning around and going back out and waiting for the captain to get up, he kept going up inside the channel. And by the time the captain got up and realized where we were on the wrong side of the buoy.
When you're coming in, though, you say wrong side of the buoy. So what's telling you which right side and wrong side?
Well, you've got
blue and green, or
red and green buoys.
Okay.
And the red are always on the starboard side. Red right, return.
Starboard side is which side?
The right side. And so he realized we were on the wrong side, and before he could get the boat out of the way, we ran up on the sunken jetty, and I'd gone to bed. I was sleeping at the time.
And were you the engineer on this boat at the time?
Yes, I was. And I just remember waking up to this awful screeching noise and violently being tossed around, and getting up to go in the galley and see some of the other crewmen putting survival suits on. And I ran up to the wheelhouse to find out what was going on, and the captain said we're on the rocks, and the main engine had died. So I went down in the engine room.
Why did the main engine die? Was it?
Didn't know.
Okay.
And so went and down, restarted the main engine, and he went and put it in gear again, and it died again. I ran down there again to start it up, and then I noticed that there was water coming up into the engine room. So I started bilge pumps up and got that going, and he put it in, captain put it in gear again, and it died again. I started it again, and then we just realized that the propeller was damaged and caved in or whatever, and couldn't turn.
Can you what year was this about, Craig?
This would have been 78, maybe.
78.
1978.
So you were 10 years into fishing at that point. From when you were 10 years old, you were 20.
Yeah.
So you're 20 years old.
Yeah.
22 at the most.
Yeah.
And an engineer on a boat.
Yeah.
So from the time you were 10, now not to pull away from the story that you're telling, but from the time you were 10 to the time of this point right now, when you've had the most horrible experience ever at sea, currently still today, because we're going back to that point, you were only 10 years in the industry and already the chief engineer on a vessel.
Yeah, but I'd grown up in it. I used to change oil on my dad's boat and all that stuff, and I'm pretty mechanically inclined, so it was natural for me
Good.
to be the chief on the boat.
So now at this point, the engine won't start. You figured out that it's probably something to do with the prop, right?
Yeah.
Propeller.
Everything's bent up and crunched up.
Okay, so, and you're in how many feet of water, you reckon?
Well, less than 10 because...
Because you hit that
Because we hit the rock.
Right. Okay.
And So then the boat finally kind of drifted off the rocks again, and we were doing the Mayday thing and all that, and I actually grabbed the single sideband microphone and did a Mayday on 4125, and then later on I found out my best friend was on watch on the boat he was on up in the Bering Sea, and he heard my Mayday.
So when you say, now just so some people hearing us right now don't understand what we're talking about, 4125, that's the very broad band that broadcasts everywhere, or?
Well, that's the channel on the single sideband that everybody stood by on. It's
Okay.
like the channel 16 on VHF.
So
And
truckers use that too, right? Or is it 19?
no,
Okay.
that's CB.
Okay. Oh, all right. Here we go.
So where was I?
Well, you tried to start it all. Things were
Oh
going
yeah,
bad.
so we ended up then, the boat started sinking. It was getting lower. The deck was awash, and then we went up on top of the house.
I don't mean to keep stopping you. Deck awash. There's water all over the entire deck. There's no. You're standing in water just by walking out the back of the boat.
Yes.
Out of the door.
Yes.
Okay.
And there were rollers out there, so the boat's rolling around. But if you were going to sink, this is about as good as it could get, because it was a calm day, just some rollers, some groundswell coming in. Wasn't rough at all. And it was dark out when it started, and then the sunrise started, and then we could see, and we went up on top of the house to release the life raft, and we couldn't get the safety undone, so we had a skiff, and we threw that in over, and we all got in the skiff, and then the Coast Guard boat came out from Westport and picked us up. And then the last I remember seeing the boat, it was just way down at the bow, and the captain was on there, and they were going to get him in a little bit, and they took us in.
Did they get him? I mean,
oh yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
so everybody survived.
Yep, and then the boat kind of drifted off and sank. It ripped the whole bottom out of the
Now,
boat.
I'm not trying to throw any punches at you or nothing, Craig, but I got to ask you, 27 years as a captain in the Bering Sea.
Well, no, I've been a captain longer than that.
Just for this company, for this boat, 27 years, and the scaredest you ever been is in 10 foot of water going down in a river.
Well, yeah, because I've never been on a boat that sank before.
No, I totally get it. I just wanted to be clear because.
I don't do stuff. I'm very conservative in what I do, so I have my theory that it's kind of like you have your border on the left and the border on the right, and as long as you stay within that border, you can do anything you want. It's when you start getting outside those borders, that's when bad stuff happens, and I don't want bad stuff to happen to me when I'm out at sea. So if I have to catch a little less fish, so be it. I don't care.
That's probably a really good philosophy or even mindset or even lifestyle choice, because
it's worked for me.
Yeah, you want to stay between the lines and not go outside. And I totally, and I wasn't poking fun about having your most scariest, well, kind of I was, but your most scariest experience was in about 10 feet of water, which I totally get. But you've been, I'm surprised that your scariest event ever has been in 10 feet of water, because you've been in 600 fathom foot of water with no boats around you ever. But probably, like you said, you've kept it between the lines and steered the right course the entire time. And that was a young guy then at the wheel watch that night, or?
Oh, he was probably in his 30s.
Was he very experienced at running that?
Not so much.
I mean, I would be scared if I was on a skiff and it popped. So I'm not lightening this at all. But okay, so that's the scariest. But now, 27 years on this current vessel, there has to be some funny stories. There has to be something that just you cannot let go. That every time that you meet someone, you want to tell them about. Oh my God, you're not going to believe this one time at band camp. Do you have one of those?
Well, I got a couple. And, well, I've been telling this one the last week or so in the shipyard, because one of the boats in shipyard is getting a new trawl fence. And
now, what's a trawl fence?
It's kind of a short wall about 3 foot high. It defines where you pull the cod end up on the deck of the boat to keep it from rolling around. Yeah, the net where
it pulls up. Yep.
Oh, where the cod end comes up, where the fish are, and it keeps it from rolling around. So anyway, a few years back, it was wintertime, icing and really cold out. And one of the deckhands came in and said, I think I have a hernia. It really hurts bad. And I said, oh, geez, now we got to deal with this. And I said, okay, well, start taking your rain gear off. Let's see what's going on. So he took his raincoat off, and then I noticed that he had a great big rip in the crotch of his rain pants on his oil.
Those great big orange spongy ones,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, your oil skins.
Okay.
And so I said, well, go ahead and take those off. So then I noticed he had a great big rip in his sweats, and he doesn't wear underwear.
Okay, so hold on. So he's got his rain gear on, which are probably like several mil thick, right?
Yeah.
And he's crawling over the trawl fence you're talking about.
Yeah. So it's about 8 inches wide at the top. It was just covered in ice.
Steel?
Made of steel.
Covered in ice.
Covered in ice.
Am I hearing a little bit of the tongue on the pole theory going on here?
Well, anyway, what happened was he'd been crawling across the top of the fence and freezing his balls against the top of the fence.
Oh,
and he'd done it over a period of time here during this one haul back. And he'd frozen his nuts, and they were aching so bad that he thought he had a hernia.
So what was his reaction when you pointed out to him that he didn't have a hernia, but he had cold balls?
I think he went and put on some new sweats and a new pair of rain gear and went back to work.
Now, this guy we both know, he still fishes with you, or
yeah.
And,
yeah, he's actually filling in. He's one of the guys that's retired off the boat now.
Hello, Jim.
In.
So this has been a great conversation. So do you think that your kids will probably never go fish as you have?
No.
You've raised them to be above, to move on beyond that.
Well,
not above.
Not
certainly.
necessarily me, but that's what my wife wanted for him.
Right. Was the mom more protective at home then, obviously? And
yeah, I mean, she wanted him to go to college. I didn't ever go to college. It's not something that I had any interest in doing. I just wanted to go fishing because I love boats. I love fishing boats.
Do you think that was a lot because of your dad? That you looked up to your dad so much?
Yeah.
And do you think that you're carrying on your father's legacy the way that he would have wanted you to?
Well, I'd like to think so, but I don't know if I am, but I'd like to think so.
Yeah.
I'd like to think that I haven't shamed him in any way.
Well, I've known you for a while, and I'm pretty certain you haven't shamed anyone.
Well, I hope not.
Yeah. So, guys, this has been Mark Kaler, Galley Stories, and Craig Jenssen, the captain of a vessel we'll name later. Craig, do you have any advice for anybody out there wanting to get into this industry? I mean, some real good, solid advice. What do you look for when you're looking for someone new to come on board?
Somebody that wants to work hard, listens to what they're told to do until they learn what to do, and has enthusiasm and wants to be there. Because it's not a 9-to-5 job. It's a lifestyle. And if you're not interested in it, it's not for you.
And what's the toughest part about the job? Not from the captain's standpoint, but from the deckhand standpoint.
Well, I think just being away from home so much is the hardest part. For me, the hardest part was leaving home. That was the hardest part. And then once you're gone, it's okay, you know. And then
kind of get over it.
Yeah, you get over it, and then it's just work, you know. Salt coding was really hard.
That was much younger in your career, though, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we haven't salted cod in a long time, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
No, that was a lot of work. That was grueling work. So I'm glad I'm not doing that anymore.
well, you come beyond
But I was
that.
lucky. I did it on a really nice boat.
So for guys getting in the industry now, it's really about being, well, first of all, capable to leave their families, because a lot of guys aren't anymore. You know, work ethic's a bit different than when we were growing up.
Yeah, one of the things that I've noticed with the really young people is they just don't know how to work. So the first thing, we have a trawl trainee program, and not everybody, but a lot of them, you just have to teach how to work. They don't even know how to work.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the first thing you have to teach them. And then you start teaching them the basics.
And the
They're
basics can be
knots.
hard at first, you know.
Yeah. Oh, just even tying knots for some of them is difficult.
So did your dad teach you your first knot? Not to keep going
No,
back there.
I actually learned that in Boy Scouts.
Did you?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you an Eagle Scout?
No.
I would have assumed you were.
No, I quit. My dad died, and I just kind of dropped out. And so I quit while I was a Star Scout.
Not to end the podcast on a very negative part, but when you were obviously fishing with your dad, you had already chosen that as your lifestyle. When your dad left, how did you decide that that's what you wanted to keep doing? What?
Well, actually, I went on tugboats for about a year and a half. My dad's best friend was a tugboat captain, so I got a job there, did that, but realized that wasn't my true calling. And then I got an opportunity to be an apprentice electrician, so I did that for a year and realized I just really need to go fishing, because I was an electrician on the fishing boats that were in the fleet my dad was in, and that's just what I wanted to do. So I got a job fishing and never left.
That was the life. Well, after working with you the last 10 years myself, I think that anyone that sails with you is very safe and is lucky. So, guys, we're going to end it with that. Again, this is Galley Stories. Maybe you'll hear another one. Maybe you won't. I think Craig and I might go have a drink and replay this and see how it sounds. But everybody have a good night.
Thank you. Good night.